I stood in the lobby of the Riverside Hotel, watching her walk down the stairs in that emerald dress, and I couldn't breathe. The woman descending those marble steps, poised, radiant, confident, wasn't the same person I'd hired 3 weeks ago to pretend to be my girlfriend. The transformation was so complete that for a moment, I genuinely didn't recognize her. My mother was staring, open-mouthed. My brother had actually dropped his champagne flute. And worst of all, I felt something twist in my chest that had nothing to do with the original plan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this whole thing started, because honestly, I still can't believe I was desperate enough to do what I did. My name is Michael Richardson. I'm 32, I run a mid-size marketing firm here in Chicago, and by most measures, I had my life together. Good salary, decent apartment in Lincoln Park, invited to all the right dinner parties. Except for one catastrophic problem that had been eating at me for 2 years straight. I was completely, utterly alone, and everyone knew it. My ex-fiancée, Catherine, had left me in a spectacularly public way. She didn't just break off the engagement, she announced it on her Instagram story while I was sitting in a board meeting. "Sometimes the fairy tale isn't real," she wrote, with a sunset photo that got 12,000 likes. The worst part? She started dating my former best friend Derek exactly 17 days later. They'd been together the whole time. Chicago's not that big, and in our circles, everyone knew. The looks I got at networking events, the pity in my mother's voice every time she called, the way people would lower their voices when I walked into a room. My mother, Linda, had been the worst. Not out of cruelty, she genuinely wanted to help. But her version of help was relentless. Every Sunday dinner turned into an interrogation about my dating life. "Michael, you're such a catch. What's wrong?" she'd ask, as if my singleness was a defect that needed fixing. She'd started inviting women to family events without telling me. A banker's daughter, a lawyer from her book club, a divorcee with 2 kids who deserved a second chance at happiness. Everything came to a head 3 months ago when my mother announced she was hosting her annual gala in October, the Riverside Hotel. 300 guests, black tie, and she'd made it clear, very clear, that she expected me to bring a date. Not just any date, a serious date. Someone who could sit next to her, answer questions about our future, and prove to everyone that Michael Richardson was still desirable, still viable, still worthy of being someone's choice. I tried to explain that forcing a relationship wouldn't fix anything. She smiled sadly and patted my hand. "Honey, I'm not asking you to force anything. I'm just asking you to try. You can't keep hiding." I wasn't hiding. I was healing. Or at least, that's what I told myself while I spent Friday nights reorganizing my kitchen and watching Netflix with a bottle of wine. By late August, I was desperate. I'd tried the dating apps, Bumble, Hinge, Match, all of them. I'd gone on 8 first dates with 8 different women. Connections ranged from non-existent to actively painful. One woman spent 40 minutes talking about her ex's cryptocurrency portfolio. Another asked me to help her move on the second date. I wasn't expecting fireworks, but I wanted to feel something. Anything. Instead, I felt hollow. The gala was 6 weeks away. My mother had already started hinting that she'd invite my father's new wife if I didn't bring someone. That was her ultimate power move. My dad had left when I was 16. Seeing him happy with someone else, someone younger, someone he'd apparently loved all along, was the kind of humiliation my mother weaponized with surgical precision. I was sitting in my office on a Tuesday morning, scrolling through my email, when my friend Brandon texted me. Brandon ran a cleaning service. He had contracts with half the downtown hotels and office buildings. His text said, "Know anyone who needs emergency work? My regular girl called in sick. Need someone for the Riverside lobby today. Pays $150 for 4 hours." I almost deleted it. Then I stopped. An idea started forming. A stupid, reckless, absolutely should not work idea. I called Brandon. Who's doing the job? Some girl from the temp agency. Never used them before. They said she's reliable. Why? What does she look like? Dude, I don't know. I'm not sending her on a date. But that was exactly what I was thinking. It took me 20 minutes to convince Brandon to give me her name and number. It took me another 20 to figure out how to call her without sounding like a complete psychopath. I finally just went for it. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was soft, uncertain. In the background, I could hear someone speaking Spanish, a baby crying, the sound of a life that was clearly very different from mine. Hi, is this Ashley? I said, reading the name Brandon had given me. Yes, who's this? My name is Michael Richardson. I know this is going to sound insane, but I have a proposition for you. There was a pause. I could practically hear her calculating whether I was a serial killer. What kind of proposition? She asked, carefully. I need you to be my fake girlfriend at a gala in 6 weeks. I'll pay you $5,000. Another pause. Longer this time. You're serious, she said. It wasn't a question. Completely serious. She trailed off. That's a lot of money. It is. I know this is weird. I'm not a normal person making a normal request, but I'm desperate and you're available, and honestly, I don't know anyone else I could ask without it turning into a whole thing. I heard her exhale. Can I think about it? How long do you need? Until tonight? We made plans for her to call me back. Then I spent the next 8 hours in a state of anxious dread, convinced I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. What if she was a scammer? What if she was genuinely concerned about my mental health and reported me to someone? What if she said yes and then turned out to be a nightmare? She called me back at 6:47 p.m. Okay, she said, I'll do it. But I need to know what I'm getting into. That's when I met Ashley Chen, though I didn't know her yet. Not really. I just knew her voice. Steady, cautious, smart. When can we meet? I asked. Tomorrow, noon, coffee shop near my place. She gave me the address. I plugged it into my GPS. It was in Rogers Park, about 30 minutes north of my office. Not a neighborhood I'd spent much time in. Quieter, less polished, more real. I should have known then that this was going to change everything. But I was too focused on solving the immediate problem. I had no idea what was actually beginning. I walked into the coffee shop at noon the next day, and I almost walked right back out. The woman sitting at the corner table didn't match the voice I'd heard on the phone. She looked smaller somehow, not in size, but in presence, like she was trying to take up as little space as possible. Ashley was wearing a gray hoodie with a coffee stain on the sleeve, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, no makeup. She was staring at her phone with the kind of intense focus people use when they're trying not to make eye contact with anyone. I sat down across from her. Michael? She asked, looking up. That's me. She studied me for a long moment. You look like your LinkedIn photo, except you look more tired. I laughed, despite myself. I've had a lot on my mind. Yeah, you've got a problem that requires hiring a fake girlfriend. I'm getting that. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. So, before I commit to $5,000 of weirdness, I need to know. Are you a serial killer? Are you involved in anything illegal? Are you going to make this harder than it needs to be? No to all three. Okay then. Tell me what I'm actually walking into. So I told her. I told her about Catherine and Derek, about my mother and the gala, about the pressure and the humiliation and the fact that I just needed one night where I didn't look like a complete failure. I told her everything, except the part where I was already starting to feel guilty about lying to my mother. Ashley listened without interrupting, When I finished, she took a sip of her coffee. "That's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard," she said. "I know. Your mom sounds terrible." "She's not terrible, she's just my mom." "Right. So you want me to show up, look pretty, smile, and pretend I'm your girlfriend for an evening. That's it?" "That's it. I'll handle all the questions. You just have to exist and look like you care about me." "I can do that," she said. "I've been a temp worker for 4 years. I'm basically a professional at pretending." We set up the logistics. She'd come over to my apartment on the day of the gala so I could help her with her hair and makeup if she wanted. I'd give her a detailed briefing on my family, their names, their professions, their tendency to ask invasive questions. I pay her half up front, half after the event. "One thing," Ashley said as we were wrapping up, "I need to know what you're going to tell them about how we met. Because if your mom asks and we have different stories, the whole thing falls apart." "Dating app," I said. "Hinge. We matched 2 months ago, started getting serious about a month ago. We wanted to wait to introduce you until we were sure it was real." "Romantic," she deadpanned. "Is that a problem?" "No, it's just sad. That's the story. Guy meets girl on app. Very 2024. She gathered her things. "When do you need me?" "The gala's on October 15th. Could you come to my place around 4 that afternoon?" "I'll be there." She left without saying goodbye, just a small nod and a push through the coffee shop door. I sat there for another 10 minutes, feeling like I'd just made the best and worst decision of my life simultaneously. The next 6 weeks were supposed to be about prepping for the gala. Instead, they became about something else entirely. I didn't see Ashley in person again until 3 weeks before the event. We'd texted a few times, logistics mostly, some details about my family, nothing personal. Then one Friday, she asked if she could come by the apartment to see what she'd be wearing. I'd hired a stylist to pick out a dress, something elegant but not trying too hard. Something that would make my mother's friends whisper, but wouldn't give my mother ammunition to criticize. The stylist had chosen an emerald green gown, sleek and simple, with a low back and a slit up one side. When I'd seen it in the fitting room, I'd thought it was perfect, professional, stunning but tasteful. When Ashley put it on in my guest bedroom, I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. She emerged slowly, like she was walking toward her own execution. The dress fit her perfectly, better than it had on the mannequin, better than it had looked in the photos. She looked like she belonged in that dress, like the dress had been waiting for her. "Don't," she said immediately, seeing something in my face. "Whatever you're about to say, don't." I wasn't going to say anything. "You were. You had that look. Like you're surprised I don't look completely awful?" "That's not what I was thinking." "Then what were you thinking?" I couldn't tell her the truth, which was that I was thinking about how I'd made a massive tactical error, because now when other people saw her at the gala, they were going to see exactly what I was seeing. They were going to see a woman who looked like she belonged next to me. And that was going to make everything infinitely more complicated. "I was thinking you look beautiful," I said. "That's all." She turned away. "Don't do that. Don't do the charm thing. We have a transaction. I show up, I look pretty, I leave $5,000 richer. You don't have to perform for me." "I'm not performing." "Yes, you are. You always are. I can tell." She looked at herself in the mirror, and her whole body seemed to tense. "This dress is too much. Can we get something else?" "Why? You look incredible in it." "Exactly. That's the problem." She pulled at the fabric like it was choking her. "I don't want incredible. I want invisible. I want to be the kind of date that makes sense for someone like you, but I don't want anyone to actually notice me. Because if they notice me, they're going to notice that something is off. They're going to ask questions." I understood then that this was about more than the dress. This was about Ashley knowing, on some level, that she didn't belong in my world, that she was playing a role, and playing a role well enough that people might actually believe it was real. Well, That was terrifying. Nobody's going to ask questions, I said. You don't know that. I do. Because people see what they want to see. My mother wants to see me happy. My friends want to see me with someone. They're not going to be looking for proof that it's fake. They're going to be looking for reasons to believe it's real. Ashley turned to face me. And what are you looking for? The question hung between us. A way to get through one night, I said finally. Right. She looked back at the mirror. Okay, we'll keep the dress. But I need you to understand something, Michael. This, she gestured at herself in the emerald gown. This isn't me. This is a costume. A really expensive costume. But when this gala is over, I'm taking it off. I'm going back to my life. And you're going to go back to yours. And we're not going to see each other again. Are we clear? Crystal clear. But even as I said it, I knew she was wrong. Or I was going to make her wrong. Because something had shifted in that moment, and I couldn't unfeel it. Couldn't unsee her standing in that dress, looking at me like I was someone who needed to be protected from his own choices. 3 weeks later, on the night of the gala, I was standing in the Riverside Hotel lobby, watching her descend the marble staircase, and I couldn't breathe. My mother appeared beside me, her hand on my arm. Michael, who is this? That's Ashley, I said, my girlfriend. And the moment the words left my mouth, I realized I'd just lied to everyone in this room, including myself, about why I'd really hired her. Because this wasn't about fooling my mother anymore. Somewhere in the last 6 weeks, it had become about something else entirely, something I couldn't control, something that was about to blow everything apart. The gaunt silence that followed my announcement stretched for exactly 3 seconds. Then my mother's grip on my arm tightened. Michael, she's lovely, my mother said, her voice pitched at that particular frequency she used when she was performing for an audience. Where did you say you met? Hinge, I said, about 2 months ago. My mother's smile didn't waver, but I felt the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was already running through mental databases. Ashley's family, her connections, her net worth. In my mother's world, those were the only metrics that mattered. Ashley descended the final steps of the staircase with a grace I hadn't known she possessed. When she reached us, she placed her hand in mine. Not tentatively, not like she was playing a role, like she belonged there. Mrs. Richardson, Ashley said, extending her other hand to my mother, Michael's told me so much about you. My mother actually blushed. Please, call me Linda. And this dress, where did you find it? Michael arranged it, Ashley said smoothly. He has excellent taste. I watched my mother process this information. A man who could pick out a dress like that? That was husband material. That was commitment. That was proof that I wasn't the disaster she'd feared. The evening unfolded like a well-choreographed performance. We moved through the ballroom, 300 people in black tie, drinking champagne, making the kinds of small talk that masks deeper calculations. Ashley was perfect. Better than perfect. She was exactly what my mother wanted to see. Beautiful, poised, clearly smitten with me, appropriately deferential to Linda's stories about the charity board and her book club. But there was something else happening beneath the surface. Every time Ashley laughed at one of my jokes, I could feel something shift in my chest. Every time she touched my arm, which was frequent, which was part of the act, my skin registered it like a burn. And worst of all, I realized I didn't want the performance to end. Around 11 o'clock, my mother excused herself to speak with the event coordinator. My brother James pulled me aside near the bar. So who is she, really? He asked. What do you mean, really? That's Ashley, my girlfriend. Come on. I've known you for 32 years. I've seen you with Catherine. I've seen you on bad dates. This is different. He took a sip of his scotch. She looks at you like you matter to her. That's not something you can fake. People can fake anything, I said, but my voice came out wrong. No, they can't. Not really. Not for an entire evening in front of 300 people. He clapped me on the shoulder. Whatever you did to end up with her, don't screw it up. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing at the bar, feeling like I was suffocating in my own lie. I found Ashley on the terrace around midnight. She'd escaped the ballroom and was standing at the railing, looking out at the Chicago skyline. The emerald dress caught the light from the city below, making her look like she was glowing. "Your mother loves me," she said without turning around. "Everyone loves you. Not me, the version of me that exists tonight. The girl in the expensive dress who laughs at the right moments and knows when to touch your arm." She finally looked at me. "That girl doesn't exist, Michael. And tomorrow morning, when I take off this dress, she's going to disappear. So enjoy the illusion while it lasts." "What if I don't want it to disappear?" The words came out before I could stop them. Ashley's expression shifted. Something raw crossed her face. Hope, maybe. Or fear. "Then you're a fool. Because I'm a temp worker from Rogers Park who cleans hotel lobbies for a living. I have a high school diploma and a baby sister I help support. I'm nothing like the women in that ballroom. I'm nothing like you. I don't care. You will. When your friends meet me, when your mother realizes I'm not one of them, when you have to choose between your life and someone who doesn't fit into it." She turned away from me. "I did what you paid me to do. I made you look good. That's it. That's all this was." "Ashley, don't. Please don't." Her voice cracked. "I can't do this. I can't stand here with you looking at me like I'm something I'm not. Take me home. Pay me the rest of my money, and then we're done." The drive back to my apartment was silent, except for the sound of the city outside the car. Ashley stared out the window the entire time, her arms wrapped around herself. When we arrived, she went straight to the guest bedroom to change. She emerged 10 minutes later in her gray hoodie and jeans, the emerald dress folded carefully over her arm, like she was handling something sacred. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I pulled out my phone to transfer her the remaining $2,500. She watched the notification hit her account. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Ashley, Goodbye, Michael." She left before I could finish. I stood in my apartment at 1 a.m, still wearing my tuxedo, feeling like I'd just thrown away the only thing that had ever actually mattered. I didn't call her. I didn't text. For 2 weeks, I told myself that she was right, that it was better this way, that whatever I'd felt on that terrace was just the product of a perfect evening, a beautiful dress, and the proximity of someone who'd made me feel less alone. Then my mother called. "Darling, I need to know what happened with Ashley." "What do you mean, what happened? We're fine." "That's not what I heard. Jennifer Chen called me yesterday. She said her daughter was asking about you last week but wouldn't say why. Michael, did you two break up?" I went very still. How does Jennifer Chen know Ashley? She's her mother, obviously. We've been on the charity board together for 3 years. Lovely woman. She mentioned that Ashley works as a temp, which I found surprising given her poise at the gala. But Jennifer explained that Ashley's been helping to support the family since her father had his stroke 5 years ago. Apparently, she's been juggling multiple jobs to help with his medical bills and her sister's education. The world tilted. "She didn't tell you that?" my mother continued. "Michael, that girl is extraordinary. She's working 3 jobs and still making time to volunteer at a community center on weekends." Jennifer showed me photos from the center. Ashley teaches ESL classes to immigrant families. For free. I couldn't speak. "I've invited them to Thanksgiving," my mother said. "The Chens, Ashley specifically. I thought it might be nice for you to see her again, in a more intimate setting. Unless you don't want me to?" "No," I heard myself say. "No, that's a good idea." After I hung up, I sat on my couch for a very long time, understanding with complete clarity that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I'd paid Ashley to be my fake girlfriend, and in doing so, I'd fundamentally misunderstood who she was. She wasn't the girl in the emerald dress. That girl was real, but she was only a fraction of the whole. The real Ashley was the woman who worked 3 jobs and still found time to teach immigrant families for free. She was the woman who'd kept her head down at the gala because she knew the truth, that she didn't need to prove anything to those people, that their approval didn't matter. I'd been the one playing a role the entire evening, not her. The day before Thanksgiving, I drove to Rogers Park. I didn't call first. I just showed up at the address Ashley had given me all those weeks ago. The apartment building was older, with peeling paint and a mailbox that didn't close properly. The kind of place I'd never set foot in before meeting her. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on 3C. Ashley answered the door, and for a second, I saw her eyes widen with something that might have been hope before she shuttered it away. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "I need to tell you something," I said. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small, but meticulously clean. There were books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on the coffee table, balanced on windowsills. A teenage girl was doing homework at the kitchen table. An older man sat in a wheelchair by the window, watching a Spanish-language news program. "Papi, this is Michael," Ashley said to her father, her voice suddenly soft in a way I'd never heard before. "Remember I told you about him?" Her father nodded slowly, understanding limited by the stroke that had stolen some of his words. "Could we talk?" I asked Ashley. "Outside?" We went out onto the fire escape. The November wind was cold, and Ashley wrapped her arms around herself. "I talked to my mother," I said. "She told me about your family, about your dad, about your sister, about the ESL classes." "Of course she did," Ashley said bitterly. "Linda Richardson on the charity board. I'm sure she felt very virtuous discovering that the help was actually helping people." "That's not fair." "What's not fair?" She turned to face me, and her eyes were blazing. "What's not fair is that you paid me $5,000 to play a role, and now you're here acting like you've discovered something noble about me? I didn't change, Michael. I was always like this. You just didn't bother to ask." "You're right," I said. "You're absolutely right. I was selfish and shallow, and I used you, and I didn't even have the decency to see who you actually were. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, deeply sorry." She stared at me. "But that's not why I'm here," I continued. "I'm here because I can't stop thinking about you. Not the girl in the emerald dress. You, the real you. The woman who works 3 jobs and teaches people for free, and somehow still has enough grace to forgive someone like me for being an idiot. Michael, I know you don't owe me anything. I know you probably hate me, but I need you to know that what happened at the gala wasn't fake. Not on my end. Not anymore. I felt something real, and I've been lying to myself about what it was, but I can't anymore." Ashley sat down on the fire escape step. "You're being stupid." "Probably. My life is complicated. My family needs me. I can't be the girlfriend you parade around to your fancy parties." "I don't want you to be," I said. "I want you to be exactly who you are. I want to meet your family properly. I want to learn about your classes. I want to help with your dad's medical bills, not because I'm trying to be some white knight, but because I actually care. Because you matter to me." She was quiet for a long moment. "You can't just fix this with money, Michael. That's not how real relationships work." "I know. And if this doesn't work out, it's going to be awkward at Thanksgiving. My mom will be disappointed. My sister will judge you." "I know. And I'm still going to be a temp worker. I'm still going to be broke most of the time. That's not changing." "I know," I said. "I don't need you to change. I need you to give me a chance to be the person who actually deserves you. Because I'm not there yet, but I want to be." Ashley looked at me for what felt like an eternity. Then she stood up. "Come inside," she said. "My sister wants to know why I've been checking my phone constantly for 2 weeks. I should probably tell her it's because of you. That Thanksgiving, I sat at a table with Ashley's family, not my mother's. Ashley's father, Miguel, who communicated with hand squeezes and occasional words. Ashley's sister, Carmen, who was 16 and studying for her SATs and had zero patience for my awkwardness. And Ashley, who held my hand under the table while her mother served turkey and told stories about when the girls were young. My mother called twice. I let both calls go to voicemail. By the time I called her back, after dinner, after Carmen had gone to bed, after Miguel was sleeping and Ashley was showing me photos of the ESL classes, I had already decided something fundamental. Mother, I need to tell you something, I said. Ashley and I are still together, and I'm going to need you to accept her for who she really is, not for what you think she should be. Because if you can't do that, then we're going to have a problem. My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Is she happy?" It was such an unexpected question that I had to think about my answer. "Yes," I said finally. "She is." "Then that's all that matters," Linda said. And I heard something in her voice shift, something that sounded like genuine understanding. "Bring her to Sunday dinner next week. I want to know who she really is." 6 months later, I sat across from Ashley in a therapist's office. Not because our relationship was failing, but because I wanted to make sure I wasn't just repeating old patterns, that I wasn't still trying to control or perform or shape her into something more palatable for my world. The therapist asked me what I was most afraid of. "That she'll realize she deserves better than me," I said. "Do you think she will?" the therapist asked. I looked at Ashley. She was smiling slightly, shaking her head. "No," I said, "because I'm finally understanding that I'm not trying to deserve her. I'm trying to build something with her, and that's completely different." "And how do you feel about that, Ashley?" the therapist asked. "I feel like he's finally getting it," Ashley said. "It only took him 6 months and professional help, but we're making progress." I laughed. She squeezed my hand. The girl in the emerald dress was beautiful, but the woman sitting next to me now, the one who is still working 3 jobs, still teaching ESL classes, still helping her father with his recovery, was everything. And she was choosing to be here.